Hey, Clean Freaks, it's Hank Balch with another episode of Fighting Dirty, closing out our series on instrument count sheets. If you missed them all, and this is your first one, go back to the beginning, check them out, then catch up with us. This is the last topic, and we're going to be talking about instrument photos in our count sheets. And you may be wondering, why is this the last one? I thought that it should probably be the first one. Well, hang in here with me. And I did that on purpose because a lot of folks, when they think count sheets and what makes a good count sheet, really the photos is the first place that we go. We're very visual in sterile processing. We have to be. There's a lot of nuances that just have to be seen with the human eye, especially when we're talking about quality inspection. You want to see the bioburden, want to see the damage. We've talked about that on a couple of podcast episodes before. But for correct assembly, it is important to know what you're looking for. And especially for newer technicians on our teams, it can be very difficult to distinguish between one instrument variation and another one. So to have high-powered, excellent count sheets, you should have instrument photos on every instrument in your inventory. But that's kind of straightforward. The challenge is what makes a good instrument photo. So I'll do a list here, kind of pulling out of thin air, but number one is the instrument needs to be a correct photo of the actual instrument that it's associated with. And you may think I'm being kind of tongue-in-cheek here, but anyone who has worked with tracking systems through the years knows how easy it is and how common it is to have instruments that you click on it and it pulls up a photo of a completely different instrument. Actually, we had a tracking system at a facility in Kentucky one time where one of the instrument coordinators took a photo with the instrument and himself. So he was like holding up a rongeur and kind of smiling. And he put like, I don't know, 3 or 4 of those in the inventory, you know. So every now and then, it wasn't all over the inventory, but every now and then you would hit a particular rongeur and then it would pull up a picture of Ethan with a rongeur. So, you know, that was kind of funny. But to be more serious, it needs to be the correct instrument. You shouldn't be clicking on a Mayo scissor and pulling up a photo of a sponge stick. Now, how does this happen? Typically, it's an error on the back end with how the product number or the instrument ID number is associated with the photo. So typically, it's not that whoever built it didn't know what a Mayo scissor looked like or didn't know what a sponge stick looked like. It's almost always a data entry problem. But nonetheless, it is a problem, and again, it's specifically a problem for our newer technicians who don't know any better to ask questions and say, well, that actually doesn't look like a scissor. So number one, it has to be correct. Number two, you have to know what you're looking at. I'm constantly amazed when I see some of these tracking system photos, and it's so grainy, it looks like a 1980s style illustration of an instrument, and you can't even tell what it is without zooming in. But you zoom in and it's all pixelated. So like there's really no, it's there, it's a photo, and it's probably the correct instrument, but it doesn't really give you a lot of information. So it needs to be a clear photo that you can see what you're looking at. And when the devices have important variations, if possible, you should be able to see the variation. Now, this may require multiple photos, especially for these longer instruments like a laparoscopic device. If you just have a photo of the whole laparoscopic grasper that's zoomed out all the way, you can't even see the tip of the device to tell you, is that a Maryland dissector or not? And so these photos need to be correct, they need to be clear, but they also need to be specific to the variation to actually give our teams the information that we need to clearly identify that item. Number 3 or number 4, depending on how you break down that list, It needs to be a thorough photo. And what I mean by that is there are some of these devices that come in multiple pieces. And it's very frustrating as a technician to have a photo. Maybe it's a photo only of the device assembled, but it's actually process disassembled, or the other way around. It's a photo of it all put together, but somehow we have to know how many pieces they are when they come apart, and know just by looking at that one photo how that happens. If there's multiple steps to the assembly or the disassembly stage on an instrument, there should be photos connected with each of those stages to inform the technician what to do in that assembly stage. Now, if you really want to push the needle toward quality, and I know there's some departments out there that are already doing this, you can add videos into many of these tracking systems to show the technician how to disassemble the device, or how to assemble the device, or how to do the quality testing, as we talked about on the previous video in this series. So it doesn't have to stop with photos, but it should start with photos. If you're in this process of updating all your count sheets to be correct, to be consistent, to be standardized, add to that checklist having a photo of every instrument in the entire inventory, clear, concise, thorough, and specific to the instrument, to enable your technicians to assemble correctly each and every time. And if you get the photos, then on the more complex devices that require it, feel free to add additional videos on how to assemble, how to disassemble, how to test, even how to place it correctly in the tray, because a lot of those things are not intuitive. We think, as experienced sterile processing technicians, it's kind of assumed, oh yeah, well, everyone knows that you don't put a mallet on top of these delicate clamps. But you don't know that unless you've been taught that. And if this new person perhaps didn't have a good preceptor or a thorough preceptor, or perhaps there wasn't even time to have a preceptor at all, they're thrown right into it because we're already short on staffing. These photos and these videos can be very, very important and critical for them to do the right thing, apart from that secondary training that they may not have had. So, hugely important, huge impact to the quality and consistency of your trays in your inventory. And I hope this entire series has been helpful to get your brain going in thinking about how complex and important count sheets are to everything else that we do in sterile processing. Really, that they're the first step in ensuring quality instrumentation, complete instrumentation into the operator room. And there's a lot of other things we can talk about count sheets. We're just scratching the surface on this. So if you've got some other topics that have come up that you want me to talk about, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. Send me an email at hank@beyondclean.net, and we'll queue them up and I'll have a conversation about them in a future video. Until then, guys, have fun working on your count sheets and getting these babies up to the level that they should be to give your technicians all the tools that they need to do a great job. And as always, keep fighting dirty. We'll see you soon.